My wife left me for weeks and admitted to cheating on me for 4 years because she was bored. Now she wants me back. I'm pretty lost in my current situation. I'm looking for any sort of insight. My wife is 39 and I'm 40. We've been married for 17 years. As mentioned, we have 3 daughters, aged 15 and 13. We're high school sweethearts. We've been together for about 23 years. I know almost nothing about this situation, but here's the only information I have. I have some information about what happened. My wife came home from work 3 days ago. She had to work on the 4th, so she left suddenly. I only know this because our oldest daughter was home at the time. She watched her mom leave and tried to talk to her, but she was just crying and didn't speak. She said she was almost in a panic. She's not responding to any of our texts. She called her parents right away, and they eventually responded. They said that my wife is safe with them. I'm asking for your patience and understanding. That's all I can do. I've tried contacting her sister, her brother, and one of her close work friends. Her brother said he knew nothing, and her work friend said she was at work in the morning and gone by lunch 3 days ago. That's all she knew. 3 days now with no contact for my wife. Not even with the kids. Nothing. No one is telling us anything. And here I am with my 3 girls trying to manage without her. I keep asking. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I've asked around about what happened with my mom, but all I've been told is that she's a grandma, and we're supposed to be patient and understanding. I have this overwhelming urge to just pack up the kids and drive over there without warning. It's only 3 hours away, and sitting here in limbo is awful. The kids think we had a huge fight and are divorcing, but that's farthest from the truth. We never fight. The kids know this. I don't know what's going on, but can someone provide some clarity from a logical perspective? My current emotional state has me thinking in circles while I try to manage everything without her. If someone passed away, wouldn't your spouse be the first person you'd tell? Maybe some past trauma was brought to life, but again, if it were me, my wife would be the first person I'd come to for support. We know nothing. Nothing makes sense. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what to do. We don't have any information and no one is telling us anything. I'm feeling worried, scared and angry. I'm just feeling a range of emotions in this situation. Can anyone suggest something reasonable? Why would you suddenly stop communicating with your family like this? I'm not very familiar with Reddit yet. I'm sorry, I don't have much to post. I don't know how to link my last post. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure how to do that. It was a long night. I didn't sleep, and I apologize for the short update. I don't anticipate spending much time on the computer today, but I did read every post yesterday and into the night. We eventually read responses today. I'll just say what I know and leave it at that. My father-in-law didn't call me last night, so I eventually ended up contacting the police. They did a wellness check as you suggested. This has caused a lot of issues, but my wife has been having an affair for at least 2 years, probably longer. Everyone was correct. The other man apparently had a heart attack on Tuesday and eventually passed away that night. My mother-in-law, and it seems like probably my sister-in-law, have known about it and have been covering for her. I haven't heard from my wife, and she's not contacting me or the girls. I'm trying to keep this to myself for now. I'm not sure what to do next. I just don't know how to move on from this. Thank you for all of the help and advice. I'm not sure how to proceed, but I'll try to keep going. If you pray, please pray for me and us. I've been recommended this sub by a few others. I just joined and have been reading through many posts when I have time, mostly at night when the chaos of when the day is over. My brain takes over and I experience these bouts of depression. Then I get hit with raging anger. Then both at the same time, I find it almost impossible to sleep. Then I wander through the day like a zombie. I'm trying to learn all of the acronyms. D-Day for me was Friday. My wife was having what I initially thought was a 2-year affair. Now it seems very likely it was longer. The man she was having the affair with was someone she'd known for a while. He tragically passed away of a heart attack, which triggered the revelation. I'm still digging for information with the help of my oldest daughter. Lots of things I'm not ready to post about. She was unfaithful with her husband, who she'd known for a while. Tragically, he passed away from a heart attack, which prompted the revelation. I'm still looking for information with the help of my eldest daughter. There are lots of things I'm not ready to post about. I had no plans of continuing to make posts about my situation, but so many people have offered so much help and advice that it's almost become therapeutic. It hurts to know so many other people have suffered this kind of pain. I'm really sorry to hear that. I met with 2 different lawyers yesterday and today to discuss options. I've also contacted several places regarding therapy, but there are very long waiting periods where I live. I'm trying to adhere to many suggestions others have made, such as avoiding alcohol. However, I don't drink and never have. I consider myself in very good shape for someone my age, but it's hard to find the energy to work out right now. I know many of you will ask me about this. I'd like to provide some context, but I'm not ready to get into all of that yet. Every day seems like a new challenge, and I'm just looking for advice on one thing so I can maybe start sleeping a little. My wife was everything to me. She was my best friend since high school and the mother of my 3 beautiful daughters. We have inside jokes and secret handshakes. It's all gone. Everything is just gone. I think about all of our years together, every milestone, every laugh, and now I just get so depressed. It's as though it all meant nothing to her. My future will be without her. Then, of course, the how could you creep in thoughts come in, and I get overcome with this unquenchable rage. I scream into my pillow and punch the mattress until my arms cramp. It's a vicious cycle. I only sleep because I'm exhausted. Then I wake up and the mind games begin. I use any energy I have to take care of my girls, who've been trying to take care of me like they're the parents. It's not fair to them. How did you all sleep after you found out about the affair? How did you manage the silence and the emptiness at night with only your thoughts? I've decided that outside of my daughter's sleep needs, I'm going to focus on myself. I'm trying to make it my #1 priority, but I just can't. I'm hoping you can help. Thanks in advance. Update 3. I'm sorry for still being relatively new to Reddit. I'm not sure how much of my situation I'm supposed to repeat or reiterate, but it's been just over a week since my D-Day. Since then, I've learned that my wife's affair was well over 4 years long. There's still no exact timeline, but it's likely that it started emotionally and then turned physical. Then it turned physical. I'm curious how the pandemic and lockdowns played into this too. I may or may not get the answers, but I'd like to know. Yesterday my in-laws made an impromptu visit to see their grandkids. Delu has been crashing at their house since this nightmare began, which is complete and total crap. Of course, they spent all of 15 minutes greeting the girl's wife, and I have 3 daughters. Then they asked to speak with me in private. It was a long conversation. The conversation went something like this. I won't go into detail here, but basically, my wife wants to come home, but she's worried about what her parents will think. They're trying to figure out if I'm planning to divorce and are trying to convince me to forgive her and work on the marriage. It was clear they were ashamed and embarrassed. They were upset, but also clear they wanted my wife out of their house. It was a very civil and respectful exchange. I admit I lied and told them I wasn't sure what my future plans were, as I fully plan on divorcing. But I feel if I reveal this, I'll never get the truth from my wife. I may never get it, but I want her to sit in front of me and explain it all if possible. She's been my wife for 17 years. We've been together since high school. I want her to look me in the eyes and tell me everything. I also want my kids to know that I gave her a chance to explain herself, that I gave her the opportunity to apologize and handle things together as mature adults. I keep trying to choose the path that will set the best example for my kids. Maybe I'm doing it wrong legally. I cannot keep my wife out of our home. I made it very clear that if my wife is going to come home, I can't stop her. I don't want this right now. My girls and I have started to settle into a nice routine, so I made a demand that I felt would be unachievable for a while. I said my wife could come home when she sat down with me in person and looked me in the eyes and revealed everything about her affair, start to finish, answering any questions she had. I asked her some questions without any hesitation or further deceit. Then I sat down with the girls and apologized to them in person. I answered their questions too. I figured that since they already know it's only fair, she can legally come home whenever she wants and doesn't have to adhere to any demands. But if she's afraid to face us, maybe I could use that to our advantage. Is that wrong? I'm not trying to be devious or deceptive. I just really don't want to start We're cohabiting, but I can delay it if I want to. There's a 90-day waiting period before divorce in our state. My wife is going to come back, and we'll both have to go back to work eventually. Life will go on regardless of this. I just want to prolong it so I can plan and get into a better state of mind and emotional health. My wife has been texting the girls, and she says she doesn't want a divorce. She keeps apologizing to them. They've shown me the texts. She asks about me daily. The reality of what she's done to all of us is hitting her hard, especially in the last couple of days. How do I manage this? I've decided to take the high road. My wife is going to be coming home sooner than later. I feel confident in my path forward. I'm not rattled by this. I knew it would happen eventually. I just want to make the best decision for my daughters and then myself as we move forward. I'd like to thank everyone who has been offering encouragement, advice, and support. This update will be rather anticlimactic, but I apologize for the length. I just need to get this out there. It was a terrible weekend, but my wife came home yesterday. There was a lot of build-up to it as this week went on. Any time before she came home, I'd give her a hug and kiss. This time, there was just this horribly uncomfortable awkwardness between us. She actually came to me. My wife tried to give me a hug before saying anything, but I turned away. It was just as if nothing had happened. After she settled, I asked her to tell me everything. She said she wasn't ready. We spoke on the phone earlier in the week, and it didn't go well. I told her that the only condition of her moving back home was that she loved the family enough to explain why she'd been absent for going on 3 weeks. She just repeated that she wasn't ready. It was tough not to lose my cool, but I took a couple of deep breaths and tried to stay calm. I failed, and after the first of many long pauses, I just blurted out that she'd been having an affair for over 4 years with a colleague, planning to leave me for this other man, ignoring my messages, and now walks through the door without fulfilling the one single condition that I had asked for and that I wanted a divorce. I guess this is when things got weird. It was clear she had no idea how much I knew about her affair. She glanced at me wide-eyed, then just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the floor. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, stoic. I was expecting anything. Sell everything but this. Maybe an emotional outburst. Maybe a tearful confession. Maybe she'd start screaming at me, yelling, blaming the affair on me. Maybe she'd start to cry. Maybe she'd start to yell. Maybe she'd start to scream. Maybe she'd start to yell at me. Maybe she'd start to blame the affair on me. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. Maybe she'd start to yell at me for making her do it. We stood in the kitchen for about 5 minutes, just looking at each other in silence. It was the strangest moment I've ever experienced. She seemed unsure of what to say, and I was just as lost for words. I'd read all of your comments, Sladice, on my situation. I'd even taken notes. I sat in front of a mirror and had prepared myself for all possible scenarios that this confrontation might present, except this one. So I decided right then and there to map out everything I knew about her affair. I guess I was a bit naive to proceed to tell her everything that I knew. I added in my own assumptions about several things like how she met AP, her sister's involvement, and what went on during the pandemic. She just stared at the floor the entire time. I got angrier as I went along because she said she didn't want to talk about it. I did everything I could not to raise my voice or get obscene. I finally composed myself, and then there was another lengthy, awkward silence. Then anger switched to sadness. I then asked her softly if I'd done something to push her away. Did she ever love me? Was he AP worth it? She didn't answer. She just stood there with her head down. She didn't cry, apologize, yell, or explain. She just stood there with her head down. This hurt. Maybe it hurt worse than the day I found out about the affair. I stood there staring at her, not sure if I would have moved, but then things got worse. Our girls were eavesdropping on the conversation. I've been putting them first and focusing on their needs for the past couple of weeks, but I got emotional and didn't think about where they were once I confronted my wife. Our oldest daughter stormed downstairs and lashed out, and my wife quickly ran upstairs and locked the bedroom door. That's where we are now. I heard my wife crying most of the night. Last night, only our youngest daughter tried talking to her. The rest of us avoided her. I'm going to suggest she stay with her sister until we finalize the divorce. This is still her home, too. It'll be miserable if we all have to cohabitate with her. I was wrong about my wife. You were right. I was wrong about all of our years together. All of the memories, the life-changing moments. I was convinced she'd drop to her knees and beg forgiveness. I was so convinced that she would reap the consequences of the last 4 years and unload the truth to absolve her guilt. This woman once drove back to a farmer's market when she realized she'd been given $10 too much in change. We're not worth it to her. I'm not worth it to her. Maybe I never was. Now what? Today was pretty uncomfortable at home. The girls and I tried to carry on as we had for the past 2 weeks, but obviously that's not possible. I just want to fast forward past all this. The divorce, the awkward conversations, the inevitable arguments, SL's fights, and the drama to those who have had to cohabitate with their Ws. How did you manage that, especially with kids? I know this is just the beginning. I keep reading all of the posts that promise it gets better, but I'm not sure I believe it. I'm so far from that point where I don't want to scream at my spouse. I'm trying very hard to maintain a stable mindset for my kids, but I'm not sure I can keep it up for 3 months. School will start well before all of this is over, too. This is my life now. Thanks for taking such an interest in me. I don't know if the worst is behind us or ahead of us, but I appreciate any advice. I'm really struggling to get through the next few weeks. I'm in a bad way, and I've been in a bad way since my WW came home. I've been trying to fake it as best as possible for my daughters. I try to say the right things and think the right things, but tonight I have to admit the truth. As many of you post daily, it comes in waves, but I was hit with a big one tonight and lost it. My composure is a bit shaken, but my WW still has yet to hire a lawyer. I'm trying to be as patient and delicate in this regard as possible. I'm starting to see hope for an uncontested divorce that we mainly handle ourselves. But after tonight, I'm not sure. We've been cohabitating during the week, and my WW goes to her sister's on Friday nights and returns home on Sunday nights. Her sister is an hour away, and she works very close to our family home. My sister is an hour away. For the past couple of weeks, it's been this routine of mostly avoidance. My girls and I are trying to carry on normally while my wife kind of just stays to herself. There are casual interactions every evening. My oldest daughter and my wife aren't speaking. After a couple of bad blow-ups, it's for the best right now. Lately, I've been hearing a lot of advice along with things I've read. I've been trying to be patient with my wife, but it's been tough. I've been short and indifferent with her when we've spoken, but I've always been polite and respectful. Until tonight, she'd come home from work, get a few things together, and leave for her sister's house for the weekend before I'd even gotten home from work. But tonight, she was waiting in the kitchen for me when I got home. I tried to just walk. She grabbed my hand and asked if this was how I was going to treat her just because she wasn't ready to talk about her affair. I tried to stay calm, but I was so angry. I tried to walk away, but our daughters weren't home. I unleashed all my pent-up frustration, pain, and anger on her. I don't even know how long I spoke. I raised my voice a bit and got pretty animated. I just broke down and told her how devastated I am and how much agony I endure daily. I told her everything I've been holding back and everything that torments me. I could write a whole post about it. If I tried to recount everything I said once I started, it would be 000 words long. Of course, I cried and got emotional again. I was so freaking angry at myself afterwards. I've been doing so well, but she got to me. I let her get to me. I knew it would happen. I knew it was disgusting. It's been building for a while, and there's only so much I can vent in the waiting room. Well, also for the first time, WW actually broke down. I got emotional and started sobbing uncontrollably. I was happy to see her hurting in the same way that I was. I wish I didn't care, but there was some satisfaction in seeing her finally break down. There is actually someone in there with an ounce of compassion. She mumbled apologies repeatedly during my explosion. She was ugly crying, and that's all she would say. I'm so sorry, but in the end, I left the kitchen. Before she could calm down enough to say anything else, I told her to please leave me alone, so she did. She lingered around the kitchen for a while before leaving again for her sister's house. The girls got home about a half hour later and knew something had happened. It was hard to hide it, but I wasn't ready to talk about anything, and I don't think they need to know about this. The two youngest have been doing much better, and I don't want to hinder their progress. If I tell my oldest about this, it'll just make things worse. I hate this so much. I should have held it together. I should have just given my WW the cold shoulder and walked right past her. Looking back, it seems like she was just trying to start a conversation about her affair, but didn't know how. She obviously didn't get very far because I exploded. I started to worry about her. I know some of you will have negative things to say about this, but I don't want her to come to any harm. She's been isolated and alone with her thoughts, with nearly everyone turning their back on her. You can say she deserves it, and that's true, but she's still a human being and the mother of my kids. What a setback for me. I'm really disappointed in myself. I'm sorry for going on another long rant. I called my brother and ranted to him too. I'll try to. I'm gonna start over on Monday. I'm only human. It actually felt good to vent on her, but now I'm feeling regretful. Should I text my wife or just leave it be? I'm such a mess. Thanks for listening and for offering me the support I need to get through all of this. Thanks for all of the advice in the midst of the chaos. We have all started therapy, so that's something. But this is incredibly hard. Just so hard. Update 6. I know. Many of you have reached out to me, and I appreciate the concern. As most of you correctly assumed, things aren't great, and I haven't had the chance to get online. I was thinking of taking a break from the internet, but this week has made me reconsider. It's been awful. My wife hasn't really left me alone all week. She's been overly nice and continually apologizing for her affair. She's been sobbing and then smothering me. She's been knocking on my door at night, wanting to talk. I've ignored her some, but I've also talked to her when I was in the mood. I finally snapped at her on Wednesday night, telling her to leave me alone. Then last night something happened. It's been just over a month since my soon-to-be ex-wife came back home after her affair blew up. Now, as things have entered this uncomfortable cohabitating routine, she came into my room after the girls went to bed and asked to talk with me in private. She was acting differently than she'd been approaching me all week. We ate at first, but eventually we actually went to the garage and sat in my car so as not to confront her in front of the kids again. She told me everything, and we were out there for almost 3 hours. I don't know how much to share. I was up all night, listening to her sobbing for several hours, and I couldn't sleep. I cried too. Then I got really angry and had to resist going into. I got so wound up, I started screaming at her, then crying, then getting angry. It was a vicious cycle. I'm sorry if I take a day or so to respond to anyone, but I need to get this off my chest and then try to sleep. It hasn't helped having my WW constantly apologizing and begging me for another chance. She did it all tonight too. I had to leave for a few hours just to get away from her. It's just so painful to be around her anyway. She was introduced to her AP by her sister well before co-dating. It seems that there was no romantic intention behind the affair, which lasted about 5 years. The AP was a higher-up at a company she wanted to work for and currently does. He gave her an in, so her desire to change jobs was not based on her affair. Once she did change jobs, she had an incentive to do so. Before she left, the AP began flirting with her. It started with texting, then pictures and more texting. Then it became physical. Just before she left, she confessed to her sister and wanted to come clean. I decided to bury it and say nothing. My wife said her AP went and see with him, but as soon as the lockdowns and restrictions were lifted, he reached out to her again. She resumed talking to him until the physical side of the affair started up again. Once businesses went back to work, she claims to have ended the affair a couple of times out of guilt, but kept going back to him, so it never ended. She included a lot of details and had a 5-page timeline. I got a packet of handwritten notes about her affair timeline. She read it to me, answering my questions along the way. She lied about weekend trips with the girls, traveling for work, traffic jams, issues with her parents, shopping trips, and more. It was just like I thought. There were so many lies. I trusted her, never questioned anything. But they were just a front to be with him. Hearing it all made me feel worse. Everyone was right, but her affection never really dipped. She never got distant like I read so often. Intimacy did change, but not enough to where I'd see red flags anyway. She admits falling in love with AP and wanting a life with him. He was older, divorced, and single. He promised her expensive things like vacations. She started fantasizing about escaping her responsibilities with the family. She said the thrill of being with him was too much. She talked about how bored she got with the daily routines of family life. She was very open and emotional, and it seemed like she was being honest. I lost my composure and began crying. It hurt to hear it all, as you'd expect. Once she was finished with her confession, she told me how much she loved me and always has. She said she's willing to do anything and everything to try and save the marriage. Many of you predicted this would happen, but it all just seems a bit disingenuous to me, like it was rehearsed. I've been with this woman for well over half my life, so I can usually tell when she's not being completely honest. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter much. I was able to compose myself better than last week, but I still got angry and said a few not-so-nice things. I mentioned that her AP was seeing multiple women and that she was just one of many that he was willing to toss aside. That seemed to upset her. It really upset her. I thought about what I could say to hurt her back, but I couldn't think of anything. Then I thought about what I would ask her. I knew I would ask if her AP was still alive. She had to choose between him and me. She hesitated, then said, "That's..." I pressed the issue, and she eventually said she'd pick me. I told her her hesitation was the reason I was divorcing her because she was lying again. She started sobbing, and that was the last she spoke. We sat in the car a while, and she just kept sobbing. I was tired, so I told her we're divorcing. We owe it to the girls to get along in a civil way, to be great parents, and to be present. I also told her that after all the pain she'd put me through, I hoped she was a good enough person to divorce fairly and amicably. That would prove she actually loved me. The last thing I said to her was, "Please understand that I'm not a petty person, and I did not purposely want to cause her pain. It just seemed like a fitting end to it all. But I did 100% mean what I said." I leaned over and kissed her on the forehead and told her that I would have loved her forever. Then I got out of the car and went to bed. That was it. Of course, I didn't sleep last night, and I'm unable to sleep once again tonight. I don't know what happens now. Her opportunity to contest the divorce is over, so I guess that's one good thing, but I haven't talked to my lawyer yet. I find myself crying again and sinking back into that depression. I was really angry when I heard everything last night. I could have done without it now that I know she could have lied and made it all up too. Who knows? It seemed to fit perfectly with everything I'd put together in the past month. So that's it for now. This is just never ending. It seems I have a few good days, start feeling strong again, and then something else happens. Feels like it's been months, yet only days. I'm gonna try to sleep. Imagine the love of your life, the only woman you've ever loved, ever kissed, tells you she cheated on you for over 4 years because she was bored. She didn't fall out of love, didn't have any relationship issues, didn't grow apart, and nothing like that. She just got bored. I don't know if that makes it worse or better. Thanks for reading and helping along the way. I've had a bad couple of nights.